This will define everything for the Pittsburgh Penguins, as this is a turning point season for the organization, and what happens throughout the course of the season, and this one thing in particular, will determine the outcome of where this team goes in the future and all the moves that Kyle Dubas is looking to make. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Penguins Digest. It's going to be a loaded one, but before we get into all of that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you, 67.5 to be exact, of you have not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins, go down below, hit that free subscribe button, because this is the place to be for all your daily Pittsburgh Penguins content. Now, Mark, we know Kyle Dubas has come out and said that they're going to be doing some regular check-ins with a lot of the core players on this team over the course of this season. They're going to check in around Thanksgiving. They're going to check in at New Year's, the Olympic break, and of course the trade deadline. And he's talking about guys like Erik Karlsson, who might actually be out the door a lot sooner than that. We've talked about that on the channel. He's talking about Sidney Crosby, Evgeni Malkin, and even Kris Letang to a degree. And I think it gets very interesting. But, you know, I think the Olympic break is going to have a significant, and not just the Olympic break, but the Olympics themselves are going to have a significant impact on the Pittsburgh Penguins and their future. And that's because Sidney Crosby, again, is getting the nod to play on Team Canada. Of course, last year he got the opportunity to play at the Four Nations. Now he's going to be, looking for his third Olympic gold medal, which is pretty impressive. So he's getting the call. Obviously, he said that it's a tremendous honor, and he talked about the Four Nations face-off. And again, you can pause and read the quote if you want, but he saw it again at the Four Nations, how, incredible it is to bring people together, obviously, to play that high-level hockey. So I think that this is going to have a significant impact on the Penguin season and some of the moves that they make, because Crosby's going to get another taste of playing competitive hockey. And I do wonder that when they check in around the Olympic break or the trade deadline, if Kyle Dubas is saying, I know you got a taste of that competitive hockey again, I don't think we're on the right timeline here. Do you want to move? I don't think it's going to happen. I will say that. All right, Penguins fans, I do not think he's going to move. I think he's going to be a Penguin for life, but I do wonder, things and feelings change pretty quickly. So Mark, what do you think of some of this? I'm going to get into some other quotes in a second about what Sidney Crosby said heading into the Olympics. I think he's poised for a crazy season. He's going to go off again for over a point per game. But what do you make of some of that?
I mean, looking at Crosby, we know one of the best players to ever play the game, winning at the Olympic level, the junior level, the NHL level. He's done everything in his power to solidify himself as a top player in the National Hockey League and in the history books. And I think it is an interesting point. Listen, we've seen him win at the Four Nations. He won. He captained it. He's going to captain the Penguins again, and he's going to captain Team Canada in the Olympics. So winning two out of the three teams you're technically playing for over that year span is probably going to make Crosby a little hungry again. He's still in the prime of his career. And I shouldn't say prime, but he's still playing like a prime player as a elite two-way guy, putting up over a point per game, setting NHL records. He feels like he's not aging. And the big thing with Crosby is if and when he wins another Olympic medal, this could be him looking and saying, hey, I won two out of the three tournaments or teams I've played with. I kind of want to go for that another Stanley Cup. And listen, like you said, he's not going to look at Dubas and request a trade. Dubas would probably have to force him into it to be able to do it. But I do think Crosby is going to look at Dubas and saying, hey, maybe we try to compete a tiny bit more. And it would not shock me if Sidney Crosby somehow willed this very young team with some veterans still on the roster into a playoff picture at some point next year.
Yeah, anything can happen. A lot of the teams that are expecting to make the playoffs, I mean, injuries happen, things can go awry. So you never really know, but I would say on paper, all things equal, this team will probably not make the playoffs, and Crosby will have a decision to make, or at least something to answer to. Kyle Dubas is going to be checking in, so we'll see what happens. And I do, again, I'll say it on the channel again, I do have a theory that Kyle Dubas is saying one thing and doing the other. So there is that right now. But Crosby, let's get into some more fun stuff, Crosby's quotes. And he said that he's just grateful for the chance to play in the Olympics again, getting the opportunity to do this. You never know. It's a tough sport, and it's true. You never know when you're going to be able to get the opportunity to do this. And, at 38 years old, like you brought up, he's not necessarily in his prime, but still playing like a prime player. And just like John Cena, Sidney Crosby's come out and said they share the same mindset that, they're not going to overstay their welcome. As soon as they dip from that production level and they look like, okay, we're going downhill here, they're going to retire. And Sidney Crosby just has not gotten to that point yet. He's still playing at an elite level, over 90 points last season. So he said it's motivating. You can feel the energy coming off the Four Nations. It should be an electric Olympics as well. Expect big things from Team USA as well. And that was huge. I think everybody got a taste of international hockey and what the Olympics are going to look like. And Connor McDavid also had something to say about the Penguins captain, which I thought was pretty cool. We'll get into the stats in a second, too. And he said, I think it's been well documented, McDavid said, of Crosby's influence on him, growing up watching Sid and idolizing him, seeing him score that goal, obviously the golden goal. He's cut from the 06 team and the obviously the 2010 team. He scores that goal. He's the captain of the 2014 team and won that championship. So Connor McDavid wants to follow in the footsteps of this Pittsburgh Penguins legend. So I thought that was pretty cool. So anything you want to take from that, Mark, as well, because obviously Crosby has significant influence. I would imagine that he's going to be the captain of of Team Canada again. And the one thing that I want to pull from that, and I want your thoughts on this too, is if the Penguins somehow land Gavin McKenna, let's say, or another really highly touted prospect next year, Crosby, I think, has taken on a new purpose. And this is what will really define the Pittsburgh Penguins, is not the assets they get back for Sidney Crosby in a trade, because I don't think that's very likely. I don't think he wants to get traded. I think it's bringing in some more of these young prospects, keeping a guy like Crosby around to then, share some of the things that Lemieux taught him years ago with some of the younger players. And that will define where this organization goes in the future.
And I think that's the big thing. Sidney Crosby is going to become the best mentor of all time when they get Gavin McKenna or another prospect at that level. I mean, looking at any kid growing up nowadays, they love Sidney Crosby. If you're from Canada especially, this is going to be the player that you idolize in the NHL. Connor McDavid said it perfectly. Everyone is going to look at Sidney Crosby, and playing with Sidney Crosby is going to be big. I mean, we've seen Macklin celebrating during the Four Nations or during the tournament this offseason, speaking on playing with Crosby, where Crosby's gear was older than him. It's crazy to see how much he's going to influence this very young Penguins team. You still have guys like Letang, Karlsson for the time being, Malkin. These guys are going to help people. But I think at the end of the day, there is no better player in the NHL to put a young player next to and not only get production, but learn how to become a very good player in this league. Crosby went through injuries and he dealt with it. Still a point per game player. He came out of that where people said maybe this will be a short career, to continue playing into his 30s. And he's looking like the LeBron James of, hey, Father Time hasn't caught up yet, but when it does, I'll know it's time. But I don't know if that time is going to be within the next 2 to 3 years at this rate.
And it's keeping that winning culture together too. I think that if you trade everyone away, you've seen it with the Chicago Blackhawks, that could become a tricky situation. It's a little bit different, but the Penguins have an opportunity to keep a guy like Sidney Crosby or Brian Rust around. Of course, Evgeni Malkin, we don't even have clarity on what's happening with that, really. We've heard so many different things, but obviously Sidney Crosby has the opportunity to stick around and be that guy for the organization. So it's going to be very interesting. You brought that up too. They had some of the younger players looking at some of the equipment. Some of the equipment Sidney Crosby wears is older than some of those players. They were talking about the infamous jock and all that stuff and the socks, and they're all older than those players, which is pretty crazy to think now. But let us know how you feel in the comments about that. Some pretty good praise from some of the players, some skilled players, and let us know what you think about, what will define the Pittsburgh Penguins future. And I think that it's Sidney Crosby probably sticking around, taking on a new purpose, a new role. Maybe he's not looking to win a Stanley Cup. He's probably looking to win a Stanley Cup, but that might not be in his future with the Penguins, but taking on a different role and kind of getting the future of the Penguins ready to go and maybe win a Stanley Cup. Let us know how you feel in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.